Hello and welcome. In this lecture, I'll be showing you how you can create a function using PGAdmin. You can also create a function using just pure SQL, but I'll be showing you using PGAdmin. So open up your PGAdmin tool and connect to your database. The database we're going to be using is called the DVD rental. So expand the database and expand the schema. Under the schema, there's a public schema. Expand that and you'll see this option here for functions. Right click on it and go create and click functions. In PostgreSQL, functions that have different parameters can share the same name. This process is referred to as overloading. So where that occurs, the function is called overloading. So we have to create a function using different, we have to use all these tabs here and fill out what we need. And at the end of the day, based on the information we've entered in these tabs, it will build a SQL query. So we start with the name of the function. So I'm going to create this function here. I'm going to give it a name called inc, I-N-C. I'm going to make it in lowercase. All right, so that would be the name of the function. Make sure the owner says Postgres. If I click on the drop down, you can see there's two other options here. So make sure it's set to Postgres. Make sure the schema is set to public. Comment, you can put a comment. It is useful because a comment basically helps describe the function to yourself and to others who may have to take a look at it later. So I put something in the comment box. So this function is basically going to increase an integer by a value. So let's move on to the next option, which is the definition. Here we need to enter a return type because we're dealing with integer. So we need to enter a integer related. So I'm just going to look for the option for an integer. You type in integer as a return. I'm going to change the language from SQL to PLPG-SQL. And here we have to enter a code that we want to be executed. So for the code, just enter this code here, begin, return, I plus val, and then end. So we're going to create this, the arguments for this in the next couple of tabs. Okay, so once you've got that enter, click on the next option, which is the option page. So we can use the options here to describe or modify the action of the function. So here the volatility basically indicates that the function value can change even within a single table scan. All right, so if you look at the options here, you got volatile, stable, immutable. So we're going to go for volatile because we expect the value to change. Okay, so if you were to pick stable, stable basically indicates that the function cannot modify the database and that within a single table scan, it will consistently return the same result for the same argument values. While if you go for the immutable option, that indicates that the function cannot modify the database and will always return the same result when given the same argument values. So we're going to skip those two and stick to the volatile one. I'll quickly run through the other options. Return as a set. Basically, this switch is used to indicate if the function is going to return a set that includes multiple rows. But the default, if you're going to include multiple rows, you change that to yes. The default option is no. Here we've got strict. This switch basically indicates if the function always returns null whenever any of its arguments are null. If yes, the function is not executed. So if you change the option to yes, the function will not be executed when there are null arguments. So, okay, so we're going to skip that. Security of defined. What this means is used to specify that the function is to be executed with privileges of the user that created it. So if you only want the person who created the function to execute this, you change the option to yes. If not, leave it at no, which means anyone can execute it, obviously if they've got the right privileges. This window switch basically indicates that the function is a window function rather than a plain function. The default is no, so we're going to leave it as no. All right. And then we have this option here called parallel. This basically classifies the operations involved in a query. All right. So if I click on the option, you see there are different drop-down lists. So a parallel safe operation is one which does not conflict with the use of a parallel query. Okay, so if you're going for the safe option, that's what it does. A restricted operation is one which cannot be performed in a parallel worker or query, but which can be performed in the leader while the parallel query is in use. Okay, and then we have the unsafe operation. The unsafe operation basically is one which cannot be performed while the query is in use. So we are not going to choose any option. I just wanted to show you what that option meant. We've got an option for estimated cost. This basically specifies a positive number representing the estimated execution cost of the function. So if you've got a value there, you can insert that. You've got the estimated row. This field basically is used to specify a positive number given the estimated number of rows that the query planner should expect the function to return. All right, so this is only allowed when the function is declared to return a set. The default assumption is 1,000 rows. So I've not chosen the option to return a set. So you can see the option is grayed out. Finally, we've got the leak proof. The leak proof, this switch basically indicates whether the function has side effects. So the default is no. And the option can only be set by a super user. So let's move on to the next tab, which is the arguments tab. So let's enter data type, click on data type and click on the plus sign. We're going to go for an integer because we are dealing with integer related value. So we'll put integer there. We're going to set the mode to in and the argument name, I'll give it I. I'm going to leave the default. I'll add another row here. Again, this will be an integer as well. So I'll just select that. And again, this will be an in. The argument name, I'll type val. All right, so let's move on to next parameters. I'm not going to use anything for the parameters. Security, if you want to set security, this is where you set it. You use the guarantee, but I'm not going to set any security. Then the SQL query, this will be generated based on all the answers we've provided so far. So click on that and that will generate a query. So if you left out any of the options or anything that is mandatory, it will not build this query you're seeing. So at this stage, if you click on cancel, you will lose everything that you've been doing so far. So always click save once you've completed it. All right. So once you're done, click save and that will generate or build the function. So if we now look, refresh this function option here, we should now see the function that we created recently. Okay. So that's the function here. You can see here it's called inc and we've got the integer and then the val, the parameters here. Okay, so we've successfully created the function. So now let's test our function by calling the new function. And the way we call the function is by writing the select statement followed by the name of the function. That's the function name here called inc. And then we're passing in the values, these two values as argument. So I expect it to return 30. So let's execute that and we should see the output. Excellent. So you can see it has returned 30. So we've successfully created a user-defined function.